Hi, Hugh from Amusespot here. Today we're going to talk about Gaetano Pesce. Gaetano Pesce has been of interest to me for about 25 years, and I've been representing him on and off for that pretty much that entire time. Pesce is an architect and designer. He's Italian, as you can probably tell by his name, Gaetano Pesce. And he's either brilliant or a madman or whatever you want to call him. I think he's pretty amazing, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about him. I'm probably going to revisit this in a couple months to discuss some more of his works because I do think he's amazingly important. A lot of what Pesce is interested in is stuff that we really love about design, which is the interaction between the end user and the product itself. And so not only these unique pieces per se, even though they're the same form, but they move and they're resin, they're fun, they move. So there are some chairs that he's produced, for example. Actually, these did go into production where there were springs instead of solid feet. So when you sit on them, they'll like move around a little bit until you're comfortable and things like that. And so his entire approach is about end user. It's end user, it's about thinking, it's about enjoyment of your life and incorporating of art and design in your everyday life. You need beauty in your life, folks. Find it. That being said, I'd like to discuss a little bit about what I think is great art and design. There is art and design that sells. And there's also art and design that's made for the pursuit of ideas. Pesce is a thinker, and he's been that way since the 1960s. His early production pieces were based upon the concept back then that there was going to be some sort of nomadic lifestyle. One of his designs was that there was going to be a nomadic lifestyle. We just moved around from place to place. Now, after COVID or during COVID, we actually did that. But back then, one of the really cool things he did was there was new technology, and he adapted it to develop these chairs that magically you opened up the box and they turned into these monster lovely chairs that also had some political overtones and undertones involved with them. Pesce went on to do a number of things throughout his career. He's still going strong right now. He just did a big thing with Bottega Veneta, making some chairs with them and things like that. And he's still producing things as you go along. Throughout his career, he's been interested in resin, which is a fairly new material overall. It's been around, resin in some point has been around in different forms for about 150 to 200 years. So it's a fairly new material for people to work with. And Pesce really asks questions about what can you do with this thing. Resin's really interesting. There's a number of different ways to use resin. There's a number of things that you can call resin. But the reality is what you can see in resin is it could be translucent, meaning it could be somewhat transparent. Light can go through it for translucence, or it can be opaque and solid like this, and you can make a little chair out of it. So Pesce began to look at resins in terms of a number of concepts. So for example, what we call polymerization of the resin, where it becomes a solid when you mix two things together or three things together, it becomes a solid. So he would need to work within a various time format to produce things. You can begin to, so these are vases. So look, they don't break, right? But here you have a great example of very, very nice piece that's very happy with, and it's also very functional. You can use this. So here you have, if you look, there's some transparency here. That's the original form. And then on top of it are these little squares of resin that give a mosaic pattern, little happy one. And then you kind of have a little, in the top, you've got this great little sunshine, sun sort of appearance here. And this one I really, really love. So this is a Pompidou vase. And then as you can see, the base is made out of squiggles. It's got little squiggles of resin here, and then it goes up to the top with the squiggles. And it's a very nice little piece. Pesce is also extremely political in his architecture. One of the most notable things I've seen is he submitted a design for the Shah of Iran's library. I was not very fond of the Shah of Iran, I believe. Another thing that Pesce's really tried to address has been the question of production. All of these things are actually produced, meaning they're multiples. You can buy 500 of these if you want. They're still in production. But the thing about this is more of an art form, and it's also more of an attachment between the user, the end user, and the actual product itself, which is the best kind of design in my opinion. So you can make this same form in innumerable amounts of options. different colors. So this could, for example, could be blue with a red wrap around it. What you have is a production item that's really not in production. Each piece is unique. Once I told Mr. Pesce that when we got a shipment in, it was like an adoption service, because we would just open up the shipment, throw it on the floor, call some people that were interested, and we just, oh, look at this one. This one's great. I think I'll take this one. And you throw them around and just kind of enjoy yourself. These are art pieces. They are in museums. They will be in museums. Like most art, sooner or later, they will be gone. Later on in the 1990s, he came up with a concept, along with an advertising agency, to have an office without any sort of offices. So everything was interchangeable. It was an open office format. And he designed everything within there. That was a failed experiment, but now also with the COVID and the nomadic concept of it, the idea of having an office where there actually is no real office is accepted by the community. And this is why I think Pesce is so important, is because he's more interested in saying what if than worried about what was the perception. And so what he's been able to do is he's been way ahead of his time generally in developing things that are conceptual and then accepted many, many years later, in this case, decades. Now we'll talk about the elephant in the room, the spaghetti vase over here. Now this is an older spaghetti vase. It's called spaghetti for a particular reason. The decor on it appears to be spaghetti, multicolored strands of resin. Once again, this is not that easy to do. This was a trial and error sort of thing. You got to understand that this works fine horizontally, but if this is too much liquid and is not going to solidify enough, you're going to have drips. Here, what they've done is they've sort of like all over it, and it's a very, very different appearance, but I think it's a heck of a lot of fun. And this is, I consider it a pretty good work, and it's really great. Spaghetti vases are made in a number of sizes, ranging from the extra smalls, which I don't think I have any here. Oh, I do. No, it's a positive. This is an extra small. To this is a limited edition of 8, and this is like number 1, and I don't know how old it is. It's probably 20 years old or something like that. Yeah, it's quite a piece. Now, this could be used as a vase or just for simple decor. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're attached to it, you enjoy it, and you appreciate it, and that's how things are at Amusespot. You're not here to impress your friends. You're here to enjoy your lives a little bit more. It is a happy little piece, isn't it? Pesce loves the fact that his pieces are interactive and that they move, that they have some sort of form of life to them. So many of these pieces are deliberately made to sort of move and change. We have a little joke about some of Pesce's stuff, because sometimes he's so out there that inevitably some Pesce items will fail. And so I've early on, before he tweaks it enough to make it work, there have been some pieces that have fallen apart. Now they're fairly stable, but early on it's been kind of interesting. And I don't know, the man loves what he does. He's a very interesting fellow. One of the great things about Pesce and what he's done is there has been this interest in resin, and resin is a liquid that then solidifies. So being a liquid, you could use capillary action, which is simply, it's just like if you put a rag, for example, in a bunch of resin, the rag would absorb it because it's a liquid, right? Up to a certain point. So one thing that Pesce did was, hey, I can now make chairs out of fabric. So there are a whole bunch of different things they did, little experiments that are so cool. One is called the Feltry chair, which is obviously made of felt. And it's this monster throne-like chair that was made by, I think, Cassina. It's no longer a production, but it's like you're surrounded by felt on this little throne. And you'll see that a lot in a lot of his chairs. This was an early one. And this is a great example of just the brilliance of Pesce in a number of things, because you're dealing with Here you're really dealing with form and material, which is a really difficult thing for a lot of designers to think about, because no one would really contemplate, hey, we can make a chair out of fabric alone, right? It's been done, but it's not something you kind of like, hey, we want to make a chair, let's do it out of fabric. But here Pesce's done something that also is, I believe, art. We see it as the form of a chair, but it doesn't have any legs. It has a seat. and it's made out of the incorrect material that all of a sudden is the correct material because of the addition of resin and solidification of resin. So this was done for the Cafe Florian in Venice. Here you can see there's a whole bunch of writing about the history of Venice. There are books on this stuff, but you can see the face. Once again, the typical Pesce face here. I guess you're having coffee with your friend, even when you're alone. So I love these pieces. And once again, they're all different. Every single one you're going to find is going to have a different color, different format, but they're going to have the same form. This is a more solid resin, incidentally. It doesn't really give as much as this one. This one gives. This is a different kind of resin. And here you have some very happy face here. And here the seat is also a face. It's a little bit of happiness in your world. The colors, the whatever. This could be dark and foreboding. It's not. This is in your face happiness. And I really think that's what Gaetano is really about. I think at heart he's a brilliant man who's concerned about the planet, but he's also really concerned about people's happiness and contentment. And this is something that I don't find a lot in the new designers out there who are trying to make a mark. I think we do need to be concerned about people's happiness and how they spend their money and how they incorporate ideas in their lives. How do we make people's lives a little better? And all I can say is I've had this piece in my house for I don't know how long, a couple decades, and I put it out there and in my room, and every time I see it, I get a little smile on my face. And that's what I feel about Gaetano's work. Gaetano was the first thing I bought. I'd seen it. One of my friends had a piece and turned me on to it, and I did some research, and it affected me so deeply that it was the first product I brought into my store. This is the first thing I've ever sold. And I actually had it on display before I even opened my store. That's how important it was. It was in the front of my front window of my first store. It may not be your cup of tea, but that's life, you know. Find something that makes your life just a little bit more enjoyable. And it's all about you. It's not all about how your friends are going to perceive you. Just add a little thing to your life that makes you a little bit happier. Spend your money wisely and do good things. Anyway, have a great day from Amusespot. Find your muse, be amused.